Hi, I'm Bruce Newhouse.
And I'm Peg Boulay, and we're with Cascade Mycological Society.
We are here today at about 5,000 feet, 5,300 feet in the Cascades of Oregon, in a kind of a flat, slightly moist area dominated by Engelmann spruce. There's some western hemlock around also. And what are we going to look for here today, Peg?
We are targeting two really delicious edible species today, the pink-edged chanterelle and the king bolete. So let's get at it.
Yeah, they both like this kind of habitat, slightly moist and the spruce habitat. So let's go.
Look what I got! Look what I got! All right.
There we go.
So found our first chanterelle of the day. And it's small because the rains have just started, so they're just starting to come out. But this is when I like them the best because they're nice and firm. But even though this is a young one, it's got all the characteristics of having ridges that run down the stem, a solid color, white and solid inside, and that really lovely floral, fruity chanterelle smell. And the best place to find a mushroom is near another mushroom. And so there's another one right here. And this is because the chanterelles, this is the pink-edged chanterelle, and this is a beautiful specimen where you can see the pink edge. It's also called the rainbow chanterelle. It likes to grow with spruce. And we're here in a spruce forest. And it tastes real similar to all the other chanterelles. But it's an early season one that I'm really fond of. And I see two more that we can get. And this one has already been kind of... Oh, someone was here before me. It looks like this one was either cut or kicked. But there's another one hidden underneath here. And early in season, looking low and looking under sticks and logs is a good way to find chanterelles because they tend to stay low. And I like to always replace my divot so the mycelium are protected. But here's some older specimens. Still has that pink edge, has the nice orange color on top and bottom, and then has these blunt gills called ridges that run down the stem. And then when you cut it, it is solid and white inside. We have the pink-edged chanterelle, also called the rainbow chanterelle or Cantharellus roseocanis for the scientific name. And it shows you how variable the chanterelles can be based on age and weather conditions. This is a young one with a really tight, small cap. And this is an older one that has become more frilly on the edge and a little bit more like a flower. But they all share common characteristics of being a apricot orange on top with some form of lighter pinkish edge. They are solid and white inside. And the gills are kind of blunt, which we call ridges, and they run down the stem. When you're looking for a target mushroom, it helps to know something about the habitat where it's growing. And if you want to learn mushrooms, it helps to learn trees, especially for a mushroom like the chanterelle, which is actually connected to the tree roots in a relationship called mycorrhizae. And this mushroom grows with spruce. And Bruce, you want to tell us about the spruce in this forest we're in?
We're at about 5,000 feet in the Cascades, a little higher than 5,000 feet. So at the coast we have this pink-edged chanterelle. This is not your normal chanterelle. This is a special one. It only grows with spruce. At the coast it would grow with Sitka spruce. Here, high in the Cascades, it's growing with this tree, which is Engelmann spruce. Told easily by its sort of flaky bark. Moist habitat. It's not particularly dry, not extremely wet, but just sort of moist here. And then the branches that, if you grab them with no glove on, if you grab them, they hurt because they're pointed needles. So that's a good indication that you've got the right habitat if you have the tree. If you find the chanterelle that has a pinkish edge on it, then you know you have pink-edged chanterelles that are connected underground in mycorrhizae, it's called, to the tree roots. And they only grow with spruce. Pink-edged chanterelles only grow with spruce. Other chanterelles are more generalist and grow with lots of conifers. Another chanterelle. This is called pig's ears, and it's brownish on the top. This one's particularly dark. Underneath it has a wonderful sort of mauve purpley color. But the problem with these guys is they're almost always buggy. When you cut them open, can I borrow your knife pick, please?
Yeah.
The bottom will usually have holes in it, as this one does, from the fungus gnats. So if you're going to eat any of this, you'll be lucky if you can find a bug-free spot out here near the tip somewhere. So you come up in here. That's actually not bad. Yeah, it looks like that might be edible. It's a very good eating chanterelle. However, I think the Forest Service is becoming more conservative with this one, so they're not encouraging people to go out and find this one and pick it and eat it. It's fairly uncommon. That's why. But it's a good one to know. And if you do see it on BLM land or private land, maybe you can harvest more of it there. So that is pig's ears in a pig's eye in a pig's ear, pig's ears chanterelle.
So we're in the high Cascades mixed conifer forest on the edge of a wet meadow. You can see how this was beautiful in the summer with flowers. But often the edges of meadows, where it's a little more moist and you have spruce, is a good place to look for king boletes. So we're going to walk the edge of this meadow. So here, Bruce found some gorgeous mushrooms. The classic fairy tale mushroom, called the fly agaric, or fly mushroom. Amanita muscaria, and it shows a lot of the characteristics of amanitas. Amanitas are some of our most poisonous mushrooms, so it's good to know the characteristics of amanitas. They have some kind of flesh around the base, either a ring or a cup. And this has these sort of layers of tissue at the base.
Multiple rings.
Multiple rings. And then it has white gills. And this was covering the gills, and this will become the ring around the stem of the mushroom as it matures. And a lot of amanitas have these warts on top that obviously can wear off or wash off. So don't count on that for your amanita. And you see here, looks like a rodent or some animal took a little taste of it. This is a poisonous mushroom to us, and just because an animal can eat it doesn't mean that we can. We have different digestive systems. But the reason why I get excited about fly amanitas in this kind of habitat is that it grows in the same habitat at the same time of year as king boletes. And so when I see this, it gives me hope that I'm going to find a king bolete in the same area. So we'll just put this back and leave it here. Beautiful mushroom, kind of slimy, disgusting on my hand. Oh my God, look at this. Woo-hoo-hoo. Now, oh wow, it's a little hollow, but look how big and beautiful this is. Ooh, it's really hollow. Oh my gosh. So this is the king bolete, Boletus edulis, also called porcini or cep. It's one of our favorite edibles. Photobomb. And you can tell it by, it looks like a hamburger bun on top, where it's this beautiful warm brown color and curved. And then underneath, did you find another one? Oh my gosh, wow, another button. Okay, we've got buttons, this is awesome. So anyways, underneath, it has pores instead of gills. So the spores are coming out of these little holes, and it's a sponge-like
And if you injure
texture.
it does not stain blue or green.
And that's important, or red. And then it has a bulbous base, and then at the top,
Which is full of bugs.
it has this net-like pattern called reticulation, and some of the best edibles all have this net-like pattern.
It's very, very fine and difficult to see, but it's there when you look at it up close. I'll get out of the light here.
And maybe you can see it right there. Now this is what we're looking for in boletes. This is the best, and I'm digging deep to try and get all of it, but this is called a button because it is young and tight, and it will grow, and there's another button, it will grow to be like that large one. So here's a young one, and then here's the older one. It can show you how this will get large, sometimes the size of a dinner plate. It will get a little darker, and then the pores will change from white to yellow to green as it matures. And it might get a little darker on the stem as well.
Spruce trees and moist areas, that's prime habitat for boletes as well. So they will also be hooked up to the roots of spruce trees. They may also, though, occur with pines and other conifers as well, particularly, though, in moist areas. These 3 boletes, an old one and 2 young ones that we found, probably are all from the same organism. They're probably all fruit from the same tree. They're probably all from the same mycelium, the fungal mycelium, the network that's under the soil here. Hey, take a look under the branch of this tree right here.
Holy mackerel! That thing's huge! Wow! Oh my gosh!
It's a Boletus edulis, king bolete, that is larger than a dinner plate. More like a serving platter size.
That's amazing!
Way beyond size that you could eat. Much larger than you can. For sure that's going to have bugs in it. Something's been eating the top already.
It's just so fun to find a mushroom that big.
This is classic here. It has to go up on the head.
It's an umbrella. It's huge.
It is big enough to be an umbrella. It must weigh, it's got a lot of water in it. It probably weighs over 5 pounds, but not quite 10. Somewhere about 8 or 9 pounds worth of water in there.
That's spectacular.
It's going to be full of bugs, so no use in taking it home for any reason. Up your aroma sensor on your computer if you can't smell this, but it smells like really strong licorice. This is a mushroom you can sometimes smell before you see it. Today I saw it before I smelled it, or about the same time. This is Hydnellum suaveolens. Not particularly beautiful here on top to look at. It has teeth underneath on the underside where it produces its spores, and it is also mycorrhizal. It's connected with all the trees around here.
These are gemmed puffballs, and they are edible, and what you want is when you cut it in half that it is pure white, which this one is not. So this is going to turn into a mass of spores. This one is over the hill and not really edible at this point. And the other reason why you want to cut it in half is some of the puffballs can look like Amanita buttons when they're young, and Amanitas can be very deadly, so you have to be very careful when you're harvesting puffballs. But these are just beautiful with the little gems on them.
I found a bolete. I found a bolete.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Where's the bolete? In a drier habitat, we might look at this and think matsutake. It's just erupting out of the soil, has a little bit of brownish tone on the top, but it's not the right habitat here. We're still kind of low and marshy, not really marshy, but moist in a spruce area. So pink-edged chanterelles and boletes are the dominant mushrooms here. So it wouldn't be matsutake in this habitat, but it could be Russula brevipeas, short-stemmed Russula. Now this mushroom you'll see in another foray from Sand and Run at the coast. This mushroom can get coated with an orange mushroom called Hypomyces lactiflorum, or more popularly known as the lobster mushroom. When it gets coated, it turns orange, and it also distorts the mushroom. So we don't see these nice gills anymore. We see, if anything, just some blunt ridges. The whole mushroom itself might become convoluted and folded. So it looks kind of like a lobster in some ways, but then you taste it when you cook it, and it also tastes like lobster. It makes a good lobster chowder. So what happens when that orange fungus coats this fungus is it changes the nature of this fungus from a rather plain and blasé edible experience that most people don't waste time with. Somebody said it tasted like potatoes. Wow, great. It changes that though when it gets the orange coating, the lobster mushroom. It tastes like sweet seafood, and people actually have made lobster chowder out of the lobster mushroom. So we'd rather see this bright orange than white. We're just going to leave this behind today, but it is interesting to note that it becomes the lobster mushroom.
So the characteristics of short stem Russula is it has this white staining a little brown cap. It has a divot in the top. It has white gills. It has a pure white stem. It does not have any tissue at the bottom, so it's not an Amanita. And a really defining characteristic is that it snaps cleanly. Other mushrooms, like a store-bought mushroom, isn't going to break as easily. Instead, you get fibers, but this snaps like chalk.
It's a different kind of cell structure in Russula mushrooms that give it that quality of being brittle.
I like to sometimes throw it at trees to demonstrate how it shatters, but then I usually miss the tree and Bruce makes fun of me. Personally, I'm not fond of this mushroom. I have tried it. It is a lot like potatoes, so you could use it like potatoes or put it in a sauce. Some people think it's just as good as the lobster, so taste it for yourself and see. This is an advanced mushroom because it looks like an Amanita, so don't experiment with this mushroom unless you are well practiced.
Consider this, if you're watching this video, consider this a brief introduction to some edible mushrooms. If you really want to get out and harvest edible mushrooms, you need to go on some CMS field trips and hang out with some people who really know mushrooms for a long time. Also set your bar really low. Maybe just set it at learning mushrooms and boletes, because there's mushrooms that look like those. So you're not just learning, what did I say, mushrooms and boletes? Chanterelles and boletes. You're not just learning chanterelles and boletes. You have to learn all the lookalikes to chanterelles too, and the lookalikes to boletes. So you have to learn 10 or 20 mushrooms that may look alike, and you're only really learning the 2 that you want to harvest. So we encourage you to be cautious and slow and develop skills before you harvest and eat mushrooms.